Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keeping It Spiritually Simple. And today I have the pleasure of, where we've done this before, but we're doing it again. We're going to do more regulars. But Jennifer Lonberg has become a very dear friend of mine who, when stuff comes up, she's the person I reach out to, like, can we talk? What the hell's going on out here? And Jennifer has a spiritual living podcast. She's author of Embodiment Grace. Is that correct?
Embodied Grace.
Embodied Grace.
Yeah.
And she's a Reiki practitioner, a business coach, and on and on and on and on. But you'll find out more about her when you check out the links below after this recording. So in the meantime, we're just going to kind of get into what we're sort of seeing in the environment right now, and some of which can be repeat patterns or what our clients, friends, family are saying, and what we're experiencing and how we're responding to be of assistance. So we're going to kind of just sort of go off of our impromptu memory here. So bear with us. We are also both very empathic and very spiritually connected. So lots of times we will get messages that will create sort of what I want to call the pause, because we're seeing a picture, or we're kind of like deciphering a feeling that's coming through. So every once in a while, if you see one of us pause, it's just because we're integrating a message before we throw it back out there at you, so it has better understanding and you're receiving it in a higher frequency. All right. So with that being said, hello, girlfriend.
Hello. It's funny that you said that, because I literally was just getting a download and I was trying to write it down and my pen won't work when you were talking about the repeating patterns. So thank you for having me on today. I'm so excited to talk to you. I feel the same way. I'm so glad that we connected. I can send you a text and be like, what the heck is happening right now? Yeah, life is really crazy. So I'm excited that we're going to talk about some of the questions that we've both been getting.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you said repeating patterns. I guess since it came through, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about this. I actually downloaded this. I think it was either yesterday or the day before, that we're in, like, we all know that there's a lot going on with energy right now. We know that we're right at the equinox. There's a full moon, or I'm sorry, no, there's a new moon. There's the eclipse is coming up on the North Node, which, is all about where we're going, right? North Node. The astrology is cray cray right now. So like, I'm not even going to try to talk about astrology, because even astrology as we know it is changing. And I remember saying that a few years ago, but I don't even think when I channeled that I understood what it meant. But now that I'm seeing it play out, I'm like, even the astrologers are having to learn different things about the astrology and having to become more intuitive with it, because it's literally changing. Like, we've never seen what we're seeing now. So there's all of these things going on. And on top of that, when you were talking about things repeating, one of the things that my guide said the other day is that it's like a spiral staircase, right? And I've talked about this a lot, like in my own membership, and I'm sure you have a way. So I'll see how it translates to you. But so when we're on the ascension path, right, like, it is a spiral staircase. So we do sometimes have to go over the same lessons, but if we're doing our spiritual work, every time we come back through it, we're going at a different level, right? So we're seeing it from a higher standpoint than we would have the first time we went through it, right? And we do this until we master whatever that spiritual lesson is. But what was really interesting with this is my guide said that this time space reality that we're in on the planet Earth in March of 2023, that what's going to happen is there's actually going to be some people that go to the next spiral or the next rung on the staircase, and some people are actually going to go back down. So they're going to relearn something. So they're going back down because they didn't quite get it. And it's not in judgment of like anybody doing anything wrong, but it's like, if you, the only comparison I have is like in school, if you don't pass that grade, you've got to go back and do it again. And it's kind of that same thing. Again, no right, wrong, no better than, nobody's ahead of anybody else. It's just for your soul growth. That's what's the highest and best for each individual. So there will be some things that are repeating. And depending on how willing you are to go deep in your own stuff, then that will determine how well you go through the experiences. And again, no shame. I was just telling in my membership, I feel like I had a test last week or 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I failed it. But after talking it through, I don't think I really failed it, but that's how I felt within myself, right? Is judging myself like, oh, I should have done this better. I should have handled this more gracefully, yada, yada, yada. So we all go through these things. I think anybody who's telling you that it's all sunshine and rainbows and unicorn farts right now is probably full of it. Like, I don't care how high you are on your spiritual mission right now, if everybody I think on the planet is struggling in some way, shape, or form, and if not, they're either not telling the truth or not in authenticity, or they're afraid to let people know that they're human. So there's that.
Well, that's huge, and that's a lot of information, and I really want to speak to the point about the astrology. I have followed that all through for 3 or 4 decades now, astrology, tarot cards, pendulums, long before anyone else was even really doing them. But I lived my life through astrology, and I would always look at certain dates on whether I was going to initiate something or back away from something or allow something to just go with the flow. And I know, like, really in October of 2022 to really present moment, it has been insane with the changes that are going on. And I have noticed that even the astrologers have had to sit back and scratch their head. Like, I don't even know how to put this out there. And we've had when you were talking about all the inundating stuff happening, I was visualizing a tennis court, and the ball would represent maybe a topic or so, and you're having this really hard, long volley back and forth. So if you've ever been to a tennis match, you're like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're thinking after about 4 or 5 of those whiplashes, somebody's missed the ball, right? But it's not happening. They're beating the same ball over and over again. And then you're hearing a lot of grunting and pounding of the ball and so on. And that's what a lot of these topics that have been going on are happening, including the ones that we have to pay attention that are coming up for our individual self.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, we can call it the shadow, we can call it draining our own swamp, skimming off our own fat, whatever you want to call it. But it's super important that we get into those layers and begin to take a closer look at those, but not, and so I'm hearing right now, but not to compromise where you need to be in your present moment, but over focusing. That's what I was just hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that makes total sense,
Yeah.
because so many times we're living outside of ourselves, trying to figure out all this other stuff. And next thing I know, our day is over. We just talked about that. What's happening that we have so much stuff coming in on our day that we're like, I didn't even get a 15-minute walk around the block. What happened? How did this happen? Right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the repeat cycle until you stop it.
Until you
Yes,
stop.
go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, like, when you said, like, there's something in, and I don't remember, I didn't clearly hear exactly the words you said, but something about how you're like, you've got to look at what really needs to be healed and what doesn't. I think one of the things that I've seen a lot with some of the healers that I know, and even kind of with my own experience in the last couple of weeks, was we kind of tend to be like, we've been in this healing cycle for so long that we're looking for what needs to be healed, but it's time to move up to the next one. There's nothing left on this level to be healed. It's time to go up to the next one. And again, some people will still have things, but don't make things mean something that they don't mean, right? Like, don't make it mean that you're on this struggle healing journey if you've already done it and it just wasn't as good as you wanted it to be, right? It doesn't mean you didn't learn the lesson. It just means, like, you went through it, but do you really need to dig that back open and start all over again? Or is it just still healing and you need to just give yourself time to integrate?
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm seeing chasing the dog, chasing the tail, dog chasing the tail. Well, it's because we have a tendency sometimes as humans to, and it's entrained in many, is to beat yourself up really
Think you're not
hard.
good enough.
And then you deserve to go to the next one, right? Then, but you're so right. We have to let some of this stuff go and trust that maybe that layer that you didn't get to is going to come up on the other layer in a different way that you may have better understanding. And then you can bring it to the forefront, resolve, dissolve, forgive, let go, use it, whatever that lesson is for you. Because again, everybody, even though there's a lot of similarities, everybody's lessons are a little bit different, because they could be on the feeling sensory, it could be on a mental sensory, it could be out here in the energetic body. And of course, we know what's going on with the emotional body, which is governed by the nervous system, and everybody's circuitry boards are just blowing up just from the energy changing and the inundation of what's been going on in politics and with our health industry, and then just within our own lives and the battles that we've come up to face, and the surrendering that we've been forced to do in some ways, and then restructuring our our own, defining who is Sandy now in this environment, who is Jennifer now in this environment, and then are we still compatible in this environment? You know what I mean? It's just everybody, we're going through all that.
So there's a lot going on. So one of the things that my guides always talk about is the 5 pillars of wholeness, which is we have to look at this life on this planet at this time from physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and then galactic energy. Okay. So part of the reason our nervous systems are so overloaded right now I almost said overlighted, which is also true. But the reason they're so overloaded right now is because it's a physical thing. Like it's physically, there is more neutrinos, light particles, light codes, whatever you want to call it, electricity, basically coming from the galactic system, that where we're at in this part of the Milky Way, there's literally more light frequency, electricity, if you will, in the air. And so our bodies have to then elevate and regulate that new higher energy. And how my guides have explained this before, in my membership, we started talking about this like 3 years ago, because it was already happening for some of us then. And what my guides basically said was, you can't take a lamp from like 1960 and plug it into a lamp or in a light socket from today. It will literally blow the circuit, because it's not it didn't have the prong on it that had the grounding port, right? Like now all of the plugs have the extra port where one of them's grounding, but in the old days, it was just those plugins. You just plugged it in. If you plug in that plug into this kind of energy now, it's going to blow the circuit. So it's the same thing for us. We have to be in awareness of our own individual energetic way that we process emotions, the way that we process our body, the way that we feel things, the way that we take in energy, right? And this is, again, emotional, physical, spiritual, all of the things mentally, that all is energy and electricity that our body is trying to process. So you take that on top of everything in the internet and on the TV and everything just blaring at you all the time. So we've got all this emotional energy in the air. We've got all this galactic energy in the air. And just from a physical standpoint on the frequency, the energy from the solar system that we're in right now, it's like moving to a new elevation. So what my guides also said is, first of all, the circuitry, learning to regulate your own nervous system, calming your own nervous system, self-soothing, breathing, meditating, calming yourself down, however that looks for you. Then on top of that, it's like we've changed, and instead of living at sea level, we now live at 14,000 feet mountain elevation, right? So we've got all of these changes that are physical as well as mental, emotional, spiritual, all of that together. So we've got to be taking care of our physical bodies to allow that energy to come in, which is staying grounded, breathing, extra minerals, extra rest if you need it. And that then causes a whole other thing, right? Because we're so tired, and then we feel like we're worthless again because we're so tired, and why can't we get shit done?
Exactly. And speaking of the physical thing, I know I've talked a few times about, stop chalking things up to just ascension symptoms, people. Start paying attention to what your body's telling you and learn to work with that. And it may be that, your diet needs some tweaking. So, if you're vegetarian, quite possibly you need some turkey or some fish. And quite possibly if you're eating turkey, fish, and meat, maybe you're eating more vegetables now. So everybody's got to be aware of what their body's asking for and tap into the feelings of that and stay out of this mental monkey mind of programming of oh, I need to be this way in order to ascend with the process. And it's like, no, that's really locking yourself into a one-liner versus
Mhm.
being, able to flow with what your body needs, because you've got to learn to pivot
Mhm.
with what the energies are doing. And of course, we already know that so much is being posted out about CMEs and X flares and, you know, um, the Earth's rhythms and things that weren't really talked about before. There's always been equipment that's read it,
Mhm.
but nobody really dove into it and then posted it out. So now people are hearing like, oh, so that's it's just an X flare. That's why I feel like this. Do you even know what that X flare is doing?
Or what it
And
means.
then or what it means?
Yeah.
To just assume you're just going to go along with that. And then as your body is changing and the cellular DNA itself is evolving and changing and mutating into different civilizations, as I've said, then you also have all the interferences from basic electronics that weren't around a decade ago and a decade before that and a decade before that that are
Mhm.
creating the haywire system. That's
Yep.
what I call it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to process physically, let alone mentally and emotionally. And they're all tied together, right? Because even if you have a spiritual upgrade, your physical body needs time to integrate that. Right. So we've got to be looking at all of those things, and understand that really being human now, we have to be integrated on all levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And then now understanding the galactic weather is actually affecting us a lot more. And then knowing, like, so when you were talking about everybody brushing it off as a symptom, ascension symptoms, it made me think of like back in the day when somebody would say, oh, the barometer must be high or low or whatever, because I can feel it aching in my knees. You know what I mean? And it's, the thing is, that's true on some level, that's true, but is that an old injury, or is there something being shaken loose, or is this really affecting you on a physical level that you need to have some things looked at, right? Because the way we process energy is electric, but it needs to circulate, regulate, and ground, right? So this is my redneck coming in. Like, I'm like, this is like a hot fence. We've got to understand that we've got electricity pulsing through us. We need to be grounded. We need to have some kind of grounding to help us process this energy through. And that's neurotransmitters, right? The way that our neurological system works in our body, which is not saying anything about the emotions. That's our physical nervous system, the way that works. And then the circulation system, because our heart is electrical too, but that also pumps our blood, right? So we've got to be looking at that. And then knowing that our mental, like our thoughts and our emotions also affect that. So we've got to be looking at all of it together right now. Like, it really needs to be an integrated process that you're going through in your individual life, right? Like, not even everything else that's going on in the world, but how do you make this, but with Aries, how do you make this about you? Like, how do you make this about me? What am I going through? What do I want in my life? How is this showing up for me? If I'm getting triggered by this stuff on the news, why? Like, why is it bothering me? What's really going on underneath it? Right? Like, there's so many different ways that we could look at this.
Yeah. And when we know that the emotional are stored in different parts of the body, and we have multiple emotions. The other night I was thinking, I feel like I stay on top of it, and I've lived and breathed it for decades. And, I always know the latest and greatest herb or, vitamin or this, and I get the best of the best. And the other night I sat back and I looked at my cabinet, and then I looked at what's on my desk so I don't forget to take it. I look at, what's on my end table before I go to bed and when I wake up so I don't forget to take it. And I'm like, holy moly. If I buy one more thing that's the latest and greatest to help me, I mean, what did I do 10 years ago? What did my mother do, 50 years ago? I mean, come on. It gets to be a lot where you're maintaining, and your maintenance is all consuming.
Mm-hmm. If you let it be that way. And I think that goes back into, I have to do this, I have to do that, I need to be good enough, I have to, have to be all of the things. whatever that is, right? Instead
Mhm.
of just allowing yourself to, again, go back to the basics. That's something my guides have been saying too, is go back to the basics. And honestly, it's been interesting because it's funny that you bring up the herbs, because I was an herb, I don't even know what you'd call it. I was a certified in herbal technology or herbal, I can't even remember,
Herbology.
herbal certified something. I can't even remember what it was called, but basically, it was just having the certification to understand herbs enough to be able to then help and find out what people needed, right? One of the most powerful things that's coming up right now for everyone is, and again, check with your practitioner. Do not take this. I am not a doctor, yada, 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 all of the disclaimers, but dandelion,
Oh
dandelion
yeah.
tea, you know what I mean? Like, just clean your liver, clear your body. Like, those are some of the things, the basic things. The other day, somebody was like, well, I don't know what I need. And I'm like, you need a potato. Like, you need some root vegetables to calm yourself down. Like, literally, that's what her body was needing, was she just needed some grounding. She needed root vegetables. But she's like, what kind of minerals do I need? What? I'm like, go eat a potato. Like, go have a baked potato for supper. So we need to stop making things harder than it needs to be, while still taking care of yourself. I still take all the things. I actually rotate mine out, so I'm not taking, I don't think you should, I'm going to get on my own soapbox for a minute. I don't feel like anybody should be taking more than 5 things at a time. Like, take minerals, great. Take a vitamin supplement, great. If you want to take extra probiotics, great. But when you start taking a million different things, it just, like, it's so much. Again, it's inundating ourselves by thinking that we need all of this stuff, when we might be taking in too much.
Well, you might be taking in too much, and some part of it may not be so healthy for you, like the ascorbic acid. I didn't realize was mold, and it's something a vitamin C portion that I shouldn't be taking for me. And
Mm,
so I've had to tweak a lot of things, and then I too rotate. I'll go a couple weeks with this,
yeah.
and then again a couple weeks, and then of course as a human, then it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to take that for 3 days. You know what I mean? And it gets to be, a full-time job to maintain yourself, and we need to do that. And when you're talking about the changes in the environment, what's happening in our avatar environment and so on, when exercise started becoming very prevalent, they would say work out every day. Then it was like, oh no, work out 5 days a week, give yourself 2 days off. And then it became, no, work lower body one day, upper body the next day, give your lower body a rest. And if you really go back to some of the ancient healings, like even yoga isn't yoga anymore. It's
Mm,
so fast paced. You're not getting your 3 to 5 minutes that really needs to be taken between each pose to let the body integrate the pose, then go back and do the same pose again. We're learning so much, and we really just have to be more gentle with ourselves and allow the rest time. Now, the way I was growing up, rest was a no-no. That was lazy.
you were lazy.
You
Yeah.
can't do
Mhm.
that. There's no
Yeah.
way you're just sitting on that chair not doing
Right.
anything.
Right. Or
But as
sleeping.
we get older, exactly,
Yeah.
we have to just say to ourselves, this isn't a luxury, and I didn't earn this to deserve it, right? It's there because I'm placing it in my schedule,
Mhm.
because it's like using your voice all day.
Mhm.
There comes a time when you have to
Mhm.
stop using it because you're overusing an instrument. And we're doing that with our body. And so we're putting so much, we're asking our body to absorb and replace old and bring in the new. And we're asking for that, but then we're not giving it the respect it deserves to allow the assimilation of the
Mhm.
energetic changes that are necessary to get us to the next level.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I'm all for rest, but one thing that I've noticed for me physically in this energy is I need 10 minutes, 15 minutes on a treadmill or a bike or something to move, taking a walk, whatever it is, to move the energy. Now I go through phases where I don't need that, but with everything coming in right now, I need movement to get me to process everything through. It doesn't have to be anything, major. I'm not like going 100 miles an hour, but just some kind of movement, some kind of walking. The bike has actually been what's felt the best to me lately. Just bringing that energy and working it through. But again, it's because of all the excess energy that's coming in, but you've got to trust your own body. Um, like I just did a podcast episode on this about what's the next best step. And literally in the morning when I wake up and say, okay, what's my first step? Like, I'm a coffee drinker. I love my coffee. I'm like, can I go straight to coffee or do I need water first? What does my body need? Like, how do I feel? What do I need? And then I trust that. Sometimes I go straight to coffee. Sometimes I drink water first. It just depends on how I feel. And then the same thing, like, with even what I'm eating, like some days it's green smoothies all day because that's just what feels right and what I feel like I need. And sometimes it's a steak, like, but I'm not judging in any moment. I'm like, what is the next best step for me right now, like in this moment?
But you know, Jen, we've had many conversations about this. People have stepped way far away from their intuition because they've given everyone else permission to say what's best for me. And we have to, no, I don't know what the word is, take back your power, because, you know, I think that has a whole lot of other things to it.
It's been used. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Overused.
really, I've never really used that saying, but it's more like I am going to initiate taking better care of myself. And that means I have to control and I have to set my boundaries and I have to ask my body, what is it do you want? Instead of making a sandwich the night before, going to work and going, well, that's my lunch. But then you sit down and you eat it. And then maybe an hour later, you feel terrible because maybe the bread or something on the sandwich really wasn't what your body needed in that moment. So you have to ask yourself on the daily, what is it that, what nutritional components would best support you today? And then even kinesthetically tune in and ask, hold that sandwich and ask your body, is this a yes or a no at this moment? Maybe, you know, you're not going to die just by drinking broth or having water or just sipping coffee and not having something for a couple hours. I mean, but things are dying off in the body and you have to give it permission to let go by not overloading it. It's like when you have a fever, that's the time when you need to stop bringing in anything because your whole white blood count army needs to be on the march. Right? It needs to be on the march. And if you're asking the digestive system to slow down and digest food when it doesn't feel like it, the other bodies suffer. And then the white blood count just stops, it stalls, it can't do its job. So basic anatomy and physiology is a great way to understand the body functions and then to have respect to ask, what does this need? And I do some of this in my you know, medical intuition stuff. We'll go into an organ and see what's going on, what's happening. And yesterday happened to be one of those days where, oh my gosh, I just was picking up sugar everywhere I turned. It was there. I was picking it up. And at the end of the day, when we did this medical intuition thing, I went in and literally my kidneys were screaming.
Like, what are you doing?
My adrenals were going glunk, glunk, glunk. And my pancreas was like a worn out racehorse. And I had to go in and ask for forgiveness and to work the lines through it. And so today, when I got up, it was like, oh no, not touching that, not doing that to this little part of my body, right? Because there's no more time to say, I'll start that tomorrow. I'll start that tomorrow. You got to have a place to start. You have to.
Well, and making it more loving and more intuitive in general, I think is really important. And that goes along also, not just with the physical, but with our emotions, with our thoughts, like all of those things. We have to start getting more in tune and slowing down, I think is really important, especially when this energy is so, it's like we're in a water hose of all kinds of energy and technology and frequency and everything, like on full blast, right? So to be able to be in the middle of it and just chill is a power within itself, right? To just be like, hell, this chaos is going on around me, but I'm going to take a minute and just breathe.
Yeah, I noticed for me, it's like lots of times I have to get on the highway a couple times a day for either run to the office or go see a client or I'm going somewhere else. And I recently realized that my lead foot is a little too heavy. And I'm like, but I'm really good at whipping in and out of traffic. I'm really good at riding your bumper and asking you to get out of my way. And then I'm really good at looking at my texting. You know, I'm really good at switching the radio channel. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, no, that's not what you want to be good at.
Right.
And what was the point of all of that? I was creating this got to go 10 and 2 when I was going to get there within a matter of
That's
minutes,
just,
give or take,
yeah,
and just slow my roll.
that's just falling back into the old parent. Like that's just literally falling back into habit. That's all that is. Right. So instead of judging it, just be aware of it. Just be like, oh, I caught myself doing that. I better just come back into intentionality and pay attention and be in this now moment. Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, let's talk about our clients for a few minutes. So, we know that we've been getting asked a lot of, similar questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's a big one that seems to be repetitive for you?
So there's there's a few things. And I think we kind of have similar questions from the sounds of it. A lot of people have been, I am so tired, like what is going on? Well, obviously we've kind of already talked about that. There is a lot of like electric energy is the only way that I can even explain it, because it's all of the stuff from the solar system, right? So there's a lot of energy out there, and our bodies are trying to regulate that. So it's okay if you're tired. Like I would say there's probably nothing wrong with you now. If you're excessively tired, again, check with your doctor, because we do have physical things going on. The other thing is feeling like we're not in reality. Like, and I've even had this, like this next, my guides are kind of saying that these few days are like a wormhole. Like we're just in this in between time before things kind of get quote unquote locked in. Not that they're really locked in, but um when I don't even know astrologically, between all of the things that are happening right now, the new moon, the solar eclipse, the changing of Pluto into Aquarius, like there's so many different things. When those things kind of settle, then I think it'll feel a little bit more solid. But if you're feeling like out of time right now, like not out of time like you're running out of time, but like you stepped out of it and you're like, what is going, like this is all of this is happening, but it doesn't feel real. That could be something that you're going through. And then I've had a lot of questions too about that, not from my clients, because most of them we've kind of been dealing with this, but I've had people that are kind of becoming aware now asking about the ascension symptoms. So again, ascension symptoms can be like the flu or being tired or some of these things that we've talked about, but also at the same time, yes, sometimes there are ascension symptoms, sometimes it is physical stuff. So you've really got to be in tune with yourself of how that's showing up for you. But there's also this like we're stepping into a new reality kind of feeling. And I think one of the things that has come up in my community is it's kind of uncomfortable because we don't really know what's going on. And so many of the people in my membership and community are so normally just tapped into spirit. They know exactly what's going on. You know what I mean? There's no feeling of not being able to connect to your guides or whatever. But right now that it's kind of elusive that way, but we're being asked to just be okay in this transition and in this moment. It's being okay with being in the, like, can you be okay in the unknown? And can you just trust from moment to moment that everything's okay? And then when it's time to step in, I know some of the astrologers right now have been talking about all the planets are direct, it's time for forward motion, and I'm like, no, it's time maybe for forward motion, but slow and steady and calculated, like knowing what step you're taking. Like this is not just blah, forward motion, you know what I mean? Like you really need to be aware of things that you're doing and why you're doing them. And this isn't the time for hasty decisions, I would say.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you there. And then when you were just talking, I was hearing, yeah, let's give you more direct things. And then let's take an hour out of your day and spring forward. Right.
Yeah.
To throw in more chaos to what's going on. And I have heard this is the last year we'll have that
I hope
daylight
so.
savings time. So it's been ridiculous for too long.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to you and I'm like, there's still a lot of people that are just now coming online. And they're coming online when more energies are hitting the planet and coming up from Mother Earth. And there's a lot of other things going on out here. So I too have been personally experiencing that fuzziness. Like I might be walking and all of a sudden I feel like I'm in 3 different locations at once, but I recognize it so I can keep going. Other people might be like in a movie where they're doing a turn in the Hall of Mirrors, right? I know I'm right here, but I'm seeing a different view from all 3 places. Whoa. And then all of a sudden that vision is gone. You know, I live here in the DC area, so everyone's very news driven and very politically driven. So I do get people that get on my table that are like things like, oh, did you hear? Did you hear what's on the news? Did you hear what they are saying? And, you know, I mostly can let it go, but some people are a little more awakened and they want a little bit more information. And I ask my guides, how much can you? Because you don't want to interfere now, because you get too left, too right, they're not back on your table again, right? But then again, I'm not there to please that part of me, but I will always ask, you know, how do you want me to go about this? And then they'll say things like, well, who are they? Who are they to you? Right? Are they just a news anchor that's handed a piece of paper and there hasn't been any real journalism? You know, we do know that the media has been owned by, they're like, yeah, I get that. And then this whole thing with, I guess, Mr. T and Today happening. And I said, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb and say nothing's going to happen. And I'll get that deer in the headlights, like, huh? But 50 other people said it was. And so people are unable to shift gears because they're, again, not tapping into their intuitive reservoir that they've allowed to get stopped up and blocked up by all of the other stuff that's happening. And I think you and I are both here to say, take a step back. Slow and steady does win the race. Yeah, you may need to be a lead foot occasionally, but not every time you get on the highway. Sandy, reminder. And
I do the same thing.
And start asking. Well, you just had a long trip.
I was just driving and I don't even want to say out loud, but I caught myself going a little bit quickly.
And again, I say, what did I just do? I just probably annoyed other people. I annoyed myself. And yet I saved what? 2 minutes because of why? Like, so slow our roll, slow and steady, allow our body to start talking to itself, allow yourself to listen to what's happening. And just, you know, listening is a big skill. It's not easy because most people have motor mouth. They have motor brain and motor mouth. They're just waiting to respond.
Well, they're all on autopilot. Like, and again, there's no judgment in that, but that was one of the things that I realized, like, it's actually in my book, Embodied Grace, that book, there's a whole section, like a whole chapter on, are you on autopilot? Like, and there's no judgment in that because everybody awakens at the right time. Right. And when you awaken to yourself, really, then you can start being more intentional about what you're doing and why you're doing it, instead of just following the old paradigm of this is the way you're supposed to do life. Like there's a whole different way of being human that's available to us if we can just trust it, right? And if we can become more aware of ourselves and our emotions and our thoughts and our own energy, and then really getting in tune with what do we even want, and then slowly taking steps to create our life the way that we want it to be, instead of just being in autopilot.
Yes. And I think our atmosphere, as we can see by the self-help section, has grown exponentially in the last 10 years. You know, it used to be, and by the way, you know, it's really sad. It's a lot of the bookstores aren't around anymore.
Right.
And I was taking a walk with a friend of mine, and she had a little 9-year-old friend come along. And I said, you know, what's really sad is this generation isn't even going to know what a bookstore is, right? Everything's online, everything's achievable through line. But the self-help section of all of these books about expanding your mind, expanding your heart, opening up to different possibilities, we're all in that wave, right? And again, we don't need to learn so much that one particular book is the Thoris. I can't even say that.
Thesaurus.
The Thoris, yes.
That one.
Yeah, that one. is the only, way to find certain things, or this is the only way to find certain things. I find now that I'm older, I make up my own dictionary. I make up my own words of what they mean. And, we're just in this, I think, extremely colorful place to tap into our badass, because we are badasses. And we do have a lot of superpowers. We just have to tap in and allow that to re-regulate itself so that it can generate all the things that make us a better human, and then walk that better humanness on this earth plane.
Right. Right.
So I know you have something to say to that. And then we have a channeled message.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so funny with even the energy, the way it is right now, even today, right? Like I had to focus to get grounded, and just being able to be like, what are we even going to talk about today? Because there's so many things happening. But I think it's just focusing in on your own life while you still want to be aware, right? Like I did watch the news yesterday just to see what was happening. I don't live by it. I don't watch it every day, but you kind of want to know what's happening in the world. But I also feel like a lot of that is distraction and illusion. But also still, be a good human and do the things you've got to do to live in this earth plane. Like there are some things that we need to do, right? So whatever that is for you, like whatever it is you feel like you need to do that in your life, but also allow yourself to start feeling more into your own self, into your own heart, into your own, like, does this feel right? Does this feel true? Does this feel like maybe something's off? If you feel like something's off, probably there's something that is. The only thing that I can say about what's going on in the news is like, whenever I see a story like that, I'm like, okay, what do they not want us to see? Right? Like, what are they trying to distract us from so that we don't see what's really going on?
Yeah, exactly.
But again, there's so many different stories. It's crazy what's going on out there.
Yeah, it's like, don't look in the backyard. So we're going to cause a fire in the front yard. Everybody just look at the fire in the front yard and all that other
and don't
stuff.
really see what's going on.
You never see anything in the backyard. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I feel that a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel there's a lot of galactic energy coming in. There's no need to be like, that's part of why my head, so whenever I have a message that I don't really, I'm trying to not
chakra.
get, my head is like, I'm like trying to scratch my head so I'm like, I'm not gonna say that. But there's a lot of galactic energy coming in. We don't need to be afraid of it, but also don't give your power away to other things, right? So we've talked about that already, about giving our power away to things outside of us, giving our power away to somebody else to tell us what's wrong with us, or giving our power away to whatever, right? Like, don't give your power away to anything. That's not, like, learn to be sovereign within yourself for your own emotions, your own thoughts, your own beliefs. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely an interesting time to be on the planet for sure.
Yeah. And I really like being in the present moment and really paying attention to, because I'm not afraid of anything that's going to occur. I want to experience it by being present in it. And I can't fully embody that or experience what I came here to experience in this moment if I'm constantly thinking about over there, got to do over there, all this other stuff that is just a lot, to me, smoke and mirrors, and different levels of game playing that I don't want to be on, so I've really removed myself, and I'm creating my own. I'm in a present moment, and I'm just, okay, something says go this way, something says this thought, something feels this way. Let me look into that. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, it's important to remember that we all have different purposes. We're all here for different things and different experiences. And so, like, one of the things I always say is, if you're meant to be an activist, you're going to know that that's your calling.
Absolutely.
Like, do that. Like, if that's your
Don't
calling,
force
then
yourself
do
to do it. There's too many people out there
Right.
forcing
And
themselves to do it because they're following the energetic thing. And it's not in their character. It's not in that wasn't their mission. But they're like, oh, I think I have to. I agree with you. Not if you're called to be an activist, you'll know it. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that was exactly what I was going to say. I have this piece of hair that's driving me absolutely insane there. After I was scratching my head, I felt like.
So,
got
so, so,
distracted with
so
my
let
hair.
me, so our audience can understand, because, you know, I understood what you were doing, because when you have your sensories intact, right? And you've spent a lot of time just really communicating with your spiritual self, your guide team, your higher self, et cetera, et cetera. You have your own way of translating, which is why I said in the beginning, sometimes we may pause because we're getting information. And so lots of times that crown chakra can get all bzz, my head will go bzz, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm buzzing here. What's going on? I got to ground myself. Let me get this information. And so yours is scratching your head because
Especially when
you're
I'm not
double
wanting to
thinking
give the
before,
message.
right? You're double thinking before an
Yeah.
automatic, and then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I wasn't supposed to say it like that.
Right.
So we, for me, and I know, I think I could speak for you and many other people that are really in this commitment
Mhm.
of living, breathing, and working directly with our spiritual self is oneness.
Mhm.
The energy in what we say and do and respond, react, receive, and put out is sacred.
Mhm.
So for me, I'll just take a step back and be in silence. If I need to say it later, that's fine. But I don't let that hiccup, that Tourette,
Mhm.
or, you know, because it doesn't get received as well as it could have if I allowed it to just bibbity bobbity boo come through and then resonate and then take my words
Well,
and translate it.
comes back to integration, right? Just like we were talking about. So when you get the spiritual messages, for me, I do need time to integrate. Um, that's actually why a lot of times I actually don't go live video. I record so that I can just be in a lot of times. So for my membership, I literally sometimes record like this with my eyes closed so that I'm just downloading the information. That wouldn't be a very good live video, but so a lot of the messages in the membership are just audio clips because it just is allowed to flow through them. But yeah, definitely interesting. And whenever I'm not just trying to blurt out whatever's coming through, because I want to be aware of the audience and who might hear this and how it's going to land for them. Yeah.
Well, the importance of closing the eyes is taking one sensory out of it so that you can double focus on another sensory.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's important too.
Definitely interesting. Like I said, the main thing is don't be afraid of the galactic energy that's coming in. And speaking of the galactic energy, whenever you're ready, I will talk about this channeled message that I want to get out today. It's out there anyway. I've already put this on my own YouTube, but I feel like it's really important, and it came up this morning.
Yeah, Jennifer and I were talking pre-recording like super fast because we did not have any planned idea of what we were going to talk about. We just went, oh, let's talk about some things our clients are asking. Let's go with the flow about sensory. And then we just boom, kind of came on. But she very quickly had said that an old channeling came up, and it's so important for today. And I was saying that I can see some of my previous videos, and I occasionally will go, oh, what was I saying a year ago? What was I saying 2 years ago? What was coming through? And it's very profound. And so the message that she's going to give you today came out before, but it's so right here and right now.
And it's so on purpose, because I had literally before this, well, and every morning I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? What are we doing? And on this call, I was like, okay, let's pray and meditate and see what are we talking about today. And I didn't really have a clear message until we sat down and I was opening up Zoom, and notes on my computer are open to this one. And so this is the message that came through. Now, this is originally channeled. This is my spirit team that I call the Celestials, because it's a blend of angelic beings, galactic beings, my angels and guides that I'm familiar with all the time, that I work with. And but there's a myriad of different beings, so I just call it my celestial team. And this was originally channeled on October 30th of 2021, but the message is so perfect for right now, so that's why I thought we would go ahead, and since it popped up it's random that it was here, so I'm like, oh, that's a sign. And this message says, this journey that you are about to embark on will be magical and lovely if you allow it. There are many paths available to you now. This will be confusing to some as it is not what you are used to in your past human experience. The heart will lead the way. Love, freedom, joy, simplicity, ease, nature, peace, affection, appreciation. If you focus there, then all of your needs will be met. Remember that while collective things are happening, you still also do create your own reality. It will be important to remember this truth, especially when others who have chosen a different path try to interfere in your experience. It will seem somewhat more divided for a short time, but harmony will come. Those who are blind will be in shock as the truth is revealed and will need the loving care of those who understand. Lead with love always, and know that this is the way to fully materialize 5D.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we already know why that popped up.
Mm-hmm.
Right when you sat down, it was there. It was like, this is what you're going to
This is the
bring up.
message. Yeah.
Yeah, this is right in your face. This is what you're going to say, share with everybody. So go back and re-listen to that. I suggest you guys rewind a little bit and re-listen to that message. Maybe even close your eyes and just allow it to integrate through your body and absorb it through your sensories, and then be able to translate it in words that may work for you a little differently, but it'll give you a better perception and explanation of what it really means to you. It could be a lot more powerful than you thought by listening to it more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jennifer, this has been a real honor. I will have your links down below. I encourage people to join your group, get on your podcast, Embodied Grace, the book, which is Powerful Awareness to Women. Is that what I'm trying to think
A
of the
woman's
author?
path to empowerment.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
see, it was
Yeah.
women's empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
I may not remember all of it, but I again, most of what I do and what you do is impromptu.
Mm-hmm.
So I might jot down a note that I might get when someone's talking, and it's just because of a picture or something pertinent to what's being said. But yeah, and that's what happens when you can really become one with your inner God spark, your inner self, and you walk together in oneness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's never any things you have to redo, or less things you have to redo, or ask forgiveness, or have regrets with, and or bring guilt and shame and blame, which is lower frequencies, because
Mm-hmm.
we're really here to see our higher frequency self, and that we have this ability to be there, to live there, and to coast there. It's not something we earn. We do need to get rid of some stuff in order to see it. Yeah. So it might take a workbook or a course to kind of get up there so you can feel it, but you don't wait to deserve love. You are walking, living, breathing love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there for you to process and to share and to exude out to others, just by being that embodiment of that soul with the spiritual living experience of why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Why we're here. We can come together like this, you and I, and say stuff, and other people are gonna listen and go, I didn't hear it in that way, because we're putting things in what I call that functional reality by keeping it simple. At least I think that's how our conversations are, which is why you're kind of one of my to-go people when I'm like, what? Or I'll get a text from Jennifer going, Sandy, and I'm like, okay, I'll call you back in 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm experiencing, so we can share on
Well,
this.
I think, I was just thinking everything that we've talked about today, and even what you're saying right now, it comes back to integration, like allowing things to integrate. And that happened for me this morning. I got a message from my guides this morning, and I know that I've had this message before, but it landed in a totally different way. And I finally, I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, I knew kind of what they were trying to bring through. And it's like, what is my next, like, what am I bringing to the world now? Like, what is my soul purpose? What is this that I'm supposed to be doing, is basically what I was asking them, because I feel like my business and everything is kind of in a fluxy kind of thing. And
yes,
and it came in so clear. And I'm like, I knew this. I know that they've said it, but it didn't land until this morning. It landed in such a powerful way. But again, it's the same thing. The more of us that are speaking about light and love, the more people that hear it, the more often you hear it, then eventually it's going to integrate in a new, more powerful way.
Yeah.
Which then allows you to spread more light and love, which puts us all more in divine alignment.
Yeah. And when you were saying earlier, it's like, Oh, I wake up in the morning. Am I going to have water? Am I going to have coffee? What am I going to have? And so I'm a big iced tea drinker. So I will usually get in my car, go across the street to a little mom and pop shop, support them, say hi to everybody, get a fresh brewed iced tea with fresh ice, you know.
So
And
good.
3 or 4 times last week, I got my shoes on, went to the door, opened the door up, and then I said, do I really want this iced tea today? And I got, no, go back and make mushroom coffee. So I 3 times in a row, I went to walk out the door and I tuned in. And because if I had just been on autopilot, I
You
would have
would've
just
went and
kept
got the tea.
going and done it. But my body was saying, no, that might be a little bit too much tannic acid for you right now. I think the mushroom coffee would help feed the brain. You're kind of sluggish. Don't take that energy across the street. And
Right.
so we really do have to tune in and ask, you know, what it is in the moment that is best, not only for us, but for our loved ones around us. And even if you don't know it, we're giving that love to all these strangers that aren't really strangers. They're just other humans we may not have been introduced to yet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, good
all
stuff.
right. So much love to you, girlfriend. Now hang on there. I'm just going to end this. Thanks for tuning in. Now, I also want to ask a favor of everyone. It's really important that you take this finger and you hit like, subscribe, share, that you look at the links in the description, and that you join some of these things that we're doing and become part of our community, because we're here all to help each other, to evolve and to grow and to expand and to be the best that we can possibly be. But the only way we can get this electronic algorithm to go is ask each one of you to just start hitting some of the links, the likes, the subscribes, and we love all of your comments. And it helps the video circulate, so maybe someone else in another country, town, city, whatever, comes across this because you took the time to hit like, which sends the video out to a higher rhythm. So we appreciate that. So Jen, say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all. See you on the next video.